I am so excited about this opportunity to have the interview of the year. I want to tell you the grace of God, the favor of God, and the healing of God has been displayed in this man of God's life. Let me say thank you for this wonderful privilege. Thank you, Howard Gilliam Jr., for helping to make this happen, working behind the scenes. I'm excited about sitting down today with Pastor Kevin Padgett. Man of God, I am so excited about what God has done in your life and Tracy. Let's start here. Tell me about how it all began, how it all started.
Well, Pastor, here's the thing. I went to work one day and I signed in and I was so out of it. I went into the locker room and I slept all day long. My supervisor never bothered me. Nobody ever bothered me. And when I got up, it was time to sign out. So I signed out and I came home and I went upstairs to bed, and I'd never even thought that it was Easter. And I slept Easter away. Well, the next day, my wife said, "You're going to get up and we're going to take you to the hospital." So it took me about an hour to even take a shower. So after I did that, I made it downstairs and my wife packed me in the car. It took a while to even get from here to the car, which is right out in front of the house. And so once I got there, there was no one there. There was nobody even there. The nurse came out. She stuck that thing up both my nose, nostrils, and she came back. I don't know how long it took because I was so out of it. She came back out and said, "You're positive." And they brought a wheelchair out, rolled me in, and that's basically all I remember. That's basically all I remember, because I can't tell you anything about when I went into the coma or anything like that.
Pastor Padgett, just amazing. Tell me the type of symptoms that you were having.
I was run down, I was tired, I had a headache, I had a fever. I wasn't nauseous or anything. I felt wiped out, completely wiped out.
Pastor Padgett, when it comes to COVID-19, we always hear about contact tracing and all that kind of stuff. People trying to identify where they, contracted the disease from. Do you know where you contracted it from?
Pastor, as I look back in retrospect, my wife and I talked about it. It had to have been from the job. It had to have been somebody that was in and out of that job that gave it to me, because my wife and I, we had taken all the precautions that we needed: gloves, masks, wipes, spray, the whole nine. Even at the job, when somebody came in there, I would spray them, and they would laugh, but I was serious.
Pastor Padgett, at the moment they make a decision to admit you in the hospital, and you had heard so much about COVID, and it was really early on in this pandemic, and early on finding about what COVID really was about. What is going through your mind at the moment you're about to be admitted?
Actually, Pastor, what was going through my mind was that, okay, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna be in here for a week maybe, and they give me some antibiotics or whatever they give me, and I'll be okay, come back home and just go about my business. That's what was going through my mind. I never thought in a million years that I would be 6 months in the hospital. I missed the whole summer.
Pastor, you're in the hospital and isolated. I mean, really by yourself. And when we spoke, you talked about dreams that you were having. Talk to me about the dreams that you were having.
These dreams that I was having, Pastor, they were such dark dreams. In every dream, it seemed as though the enemy was trying to kill me. But at the end of the dream, I would always have a way of escape. My God, Jesus. I would always have a way of escape. The one vivid dream that I had was that I was on a train, and this train was pitch black. You couldn't see in the windows or you couldn't see out of the windows. And this train, after everybody had boarded, closed the doors, and the train started in a circular motion going down like a spiral staircase. And this train was going down. And then all of a sudden, the train stopped. And it started to back up to where we boarded at. And it did it maybe 3 times. And the final time that it backed up, somebody called my name. And I got off the train. And I believe that was the day that I came out of the coma. And God said, you will live and not die.
Kevin, you come out of a coma, and we hear so much about what it's like to come out of a coma. What was it like for you? How did you feel when you came out of the coma?
Pastor, I can't even remember that. All I remember was then I started to come around, and I had that thing, the tracheotomy on me, and I was breathing. My breathing was very, very labored, and they were trying to, at that point, they were trying to wean me off of it so that I could get rid of it. And I remember I couldn't walk. I had to learn how to walk again, and the physical therapists would come in the room and they would try to get me up. I couldn't even stand up for 30 seconds. That's how bad my muscles had atrophied and were just limp. But thank God today, I'm walking again.
Kevin, you come out of this coma. What are the nurses saying to you at the moment you come out? What are some of the things that they were saying to you?
They were just encouraging me every day, and some of them would get angry at me because they couldn't understand how I felt, and I couldn't understand why they were pushing me, because they wanted me to get better. They knew it was in me, but it was so hard for me to breathe. I couldn't catch my breath for 5 or 6 minutes after I would just stand up for 30 seconds. But they weaned me off the oxygen. They took the tracheotomy out of my throat. The hole closed up. Day by day, I would get up and I would be okay standing for a few minutes. I would then transfer from the bed to the chair to sit up, to start to, get some sort of activity going. And before I knew it, they had transferred me from Kindred Hospital to the Bryn Mawr Rehab Hospital. And there, let me tell you something, it was the fight of my life getting rehabbed and back to the place where I am now. And I still have a long way to go, but God.
Kev, graciously, and I can't imagine the amount of calls that Tracy was getting, but graciously, she communicated, her and Kim communicated every week. I would jump into some of the conversations, but Tracy has been amazing. Wife of the year, the century, the decade, whatever you want. Just a great woman of God. Tell me about Tracy as a support system through all of this.
Let me tell you something. I couldn't have imagined, or if I was an artist, I couldn't have drew a more perfect wife than what I have right now. My wife, she held this down here at home so much. I couldn't have done a better job myself. Her and my daughter Jeremy and my grandson Elijah, even he had COVID at 15 months. But they held it down here so well that I couldn't have done a better job. I couldn't ask God for a better person in Tracy Michelle Padgett and Jeremy Alexa Padgett. I couldn't have asked for a better wife.
Kevin, you have gone through so much. You come out of this coma. You're making your way back. What's one of the first things that you wanted or desire? Coming out of the coma, starting this whole rehabilitation piece. What is one of the first things that you desired?
Well, when I had the the tracheotomy in my throat, I couldn't eat or drink anything because I had a system that was feeding me through my peg tube in my stomach. And so the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted a glass of ice water. You can't imagine how thirsty I was. And after they had taken it out and they put a voice box in my throat first, and I was able to talk. And they had given me this test, a swallow test, where they would bring in a tray of all kinds of things on the tray: pudding, jello, water, milk, juice, and things like that, to test to see that it was okay for me to swallow. So after I passed that, they said, okay, you can drink. Please give me a glass of ice water. That was one of the first things that I did that I wanted to do. And then the following things was, I was asking God, will I ever get back to normal? That was a legitimate question I had to ask God. Some people say you aren't to question God, but my thing is, how will I ever figure out what He wants for me if I don't ask Him? So I asked Him, God, will I ever get back to normal? And it reminded me of 2 Samuel chapter 11, I believe, chapter 30, that said, Lord, should I pursue, and will I retain or regain everything that they stole from me? And the Lord said, yes, go after them. You shall surely get it all. So I thank God, man.
Pastor Kev, I teach this, and I really try to live by this, that everything I go through, everything I've gone through, the good, the bad, the ugly, the trials, the tribulation, and turmoil, I've always tried to walk away with a lesson. What have you learned through all of this?
Patience. Patience, because I spent a lot of lonely nights in that hospital. Couldn't touch anybody. I couldn't talk to anybody because the nurses were in and out, and they weren't sensitive to, my being alone. So I had to talk to God, and I just learned how to be patient. My wife said earlier today, in fact, that I never had a chance to mourn my father's death because I was so busy with my mother and sister. I had never had a chance to mourn my brother's death because, again, of my mother and sister. And then when my mother passed, I still had my sister to take care of. So I was never really able to mourn them properly. And my wife said, this might have been a way of God giving you some rest and letting you just chill for a minute. And so that's what was going on.
Pastor, in this season, and you watch the news, and you even said to me how for all of the people that said this isn't real and this is a hoax, there's somebody watching right now with the numbers the way they are that have just been diagnosed with COVID. Man of God, what do you say to them?
Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. You have to lean on God for this, because nobody else can tell you what to do or how to do it. You have to talk to God about it. And I just really wanted to encourage somebody that going through it, God will take you through it if you just let Him take the way. Lead the way for you. God will do it for you. You just have to believe. You just have to believe. And I truly, you can't make me doubt Him because I know too much about Him.
Man, I want to tell you what a joy and privilege it is to have this opportunity for us to chat. And I can't wait for the day that God allows you to get back here to this congregation. They love you. They love Tracy, the entire family. This has been such a blessing to have prayed and to see God at work, and to watch your faith and Tracy's faith and the family's faith and our congregation's faith through this whole thing. We can't wait to see you, man, and that day where we can unmask and hug and not be separated by, lenses and all that good stuff. However, is there any last thing that you want to say to the congregation and all of those who are listening?
I would just like to thank you, Pastor and First Lady Kimberly, Compassion Family. I just wanted to thank you for praying for a guy like me. I thank you. I love you so much. You are all so near and dear to my heart. And my beautiful wife says thank you also. God bless you. And I wish that you would stay safe, keep your masks on, keep your gloves on, and stay home if you can. Amen.
I'm telling you, I have had the wonderful privilege on television and in radio to interview thousands of people, but this is the best, watching what God has done in the life of Pastor Kevin Padgett and Tracy Padgett, a miracle in our midst in 2020. To God be the glory for the great things he has done. He's not a respecter of persons. What he's done for them, wherever you need a miracle, he'll also do it for you. Be blessed.